Hey everybody, and welcome back to Fantasy Football. We are in game week 8, so we have a look, and actually seems like a fairly decent week for me on paper here. However, I am recording this late on a Sunday night, so it may not be completely up to date, but 53 points for me. Average was 36, a poor week I think, which made sense because a lot of the big players just did not fire. There were a lot of surprises and shocks this week, as we will go through. Got a lot to say about this. In terms of my team, Gator in goal, obviously conceded, but I think he got a bonus point for saves. He made quite a few. Made 4. So I think that's why he got that. Alexander-Arnold kept a clean sheet. Maguire did not. Van Arnholt doing bits, scored a goal. Legend. Didn't expect that, to be completely honest. We'll talk about Crystal Palace for certain, but Salah and Sterling didn't do anything. Sterling got 6 points because I triple captained him. For whatever reason, I thought that Man City would wipe aside Wolves with ease, and Sterling would be in the team and scoring. No, he wasn't the team. However, we'll talk about that game as well. Catwell Guendouzi didn't really do much, although Guendouzi got the clean sheet bonus. Haller scored. Jimenez had a fantastic game. Was it 2 assists? Yeah, 2 assists. He was brilliant as well. And Abraham got a goal. Douglas Luiz got a goal. And Holebas kept a clean sheet as well. So my bench was pretty strong actually this week as well. Should have played bench boost, not triple captain. Anyway, if we go to the Plays League, I'd moved off the bottom, guys. Yeah. Murder on Zidane's spot. That's a great name, by the way, Craig. Brilliant name. Did I have the top score this week? And there's another 53. Did anybody beat 53? At the minute, nobody else beat 53, so I might have had the joint top score. Wow, incredible. But as I said, it might actually update, to be fair. Let's have a look who the other one was. Porto Frito. Sterling captain. I wasn't the only one. Oof, Rodrigo and Aguero. Ouch. Mane scored. Yep, looking good. Abraham, Wijnaldum, some good defence. Kelly's a decent signing there, actually. Or, decent player to have in there. Pookie. Yeah, I'm really over the whole Pookie. He's got Ryan and Pope both scoring 7. That's not too bad. I think the Pookie party's over, I've got to say. Let me know how you guys did in there. Now we're going to go into the matches, and we're talking. I mean, there were some terrible results for teams this week. I mean, I think it really shook up the Premier League in some ways this week. We're looking at the table. We're seeing some an Everton in the bottom 3. I mean, Man United in the bottom half. It is, Crystal Palace in 6th. Oh boy. Anyway, Brighton convincingly beating Tottenham 3-0. Spurs are, I don't know what's going on with Spurs right now. They're all over the place. There's rumours there's rumours that Vertonghen slept with Eriksen's wife or something like this, and they came out and said it wasn't true. I mean, who the hell knows? There's something going wrong in that team. Whether it is a case of having a few players in the final year of their contract and that's not sitting well with the team, or whether it's Pochettino kind of getting a bit fed up and wanting to move on. It just seems that since that European final, it feels like that Ajax game was like the high, It felt like that was the pinnacle of Spurs' achievement, and then since then it's almost like they're on a come down, and it all the adrenaline's gone from them, and they're going down. I mean, let's not forget, they've had such weird form, they've done things like they've battered Palace 4-0, and then lose to Leicester, which Leicester are a decent team, but still, beat Southampton when they were down to 10 men. A lot of people, me included, thought this might be a bit of a turning point for them. Midweek, Bayern Munich at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 7-2. Serge Gnabry once deemed not good enough to play for West Brom, scored 4 goals past you. What is going on at Spurs? I don't know. I mean, they're in ninth. It's not the end of the world. They're a win off getting back into the top 4 potentially, But yeah, it's not been a great season for them so far, has it really? And this is a battering from a Brighton team who were on a bad run of form, it has to be said, who were really struggling. And, they had 1 win before this game. And they were pretty much, in the relegation zone. And, you have to say, a terrible injury to Lloris to begin with. But, wishing him all the will in the world. The injury came about because he really misjudged a shot cross, if you like. Dropped it down and kind of fell awkwardly on his arm. I don't know what the what has actually happened to him. Whether or not I haven't seen anything to say whether it's broken, dislocated, fractures, anything like that. But it looked really seriously bad. I wouldn't imagine he's going to be playing for a while. But yeah, Mopé puts that away, who I think has been a decent signing for them this season. But from there, Spurs just didn't do anything. They just look so dysfunctional. 3 shots on target, 8 shots in total. The possession's pretty close. It's just not what you'd expect from a side who, they made the European Cup final last season. Didn't lose a player. They've just. It kind of feels like. It feels like Alderweireld and Vertonghen have just really slowed down this season from where they were before. It's funny sometimes this happens with players. Like, I think Gary Neville was kind of talking about it because he kind of retired midway through a season, basically, where he was like, he just knew he wasn't able to keep up to that level anymore. He knew it was done, and it kind of almost feels like that with like Alderweireld and Vertonghen. Like, for so long they've been a brilliant partnership in the Spurs defence, but they just feel like they're so slow now in the Premier League. But on paper, Spurs have got a brilliant team still. It's fascinating, what's going on for them. Where do they go? Is Pochettino going to still be there at the end of the season? Who knows? I think he'll if he leaves, he'll leave with his kind of head held high, as he can do. People will talk about it and say, well, he hasn't won anything, and that's fair. There's a fair point. I feel like sometimes he, the Colchester game in the League Cup is a primary thing. Like, the way I feel is that sometimes if you haven't won anything for a while, focus on a competition that perhaps is not going to be quite as cutthroat. It's all well and good trying to win the league, trying to win the European Cup or whatever cup you're in, but sometimes I felt like and not just last season, this season, whatever, but a lot of times he's not prioritised what you would count as lesser competitions. Like, he's gone for the big competitions, which is admirable in one way, just to have the bottle and the guts to say, yeah, we can take these guys on, but in another way, just get that, in the same way sometimes a striker just needs a goal and it will get them going. In some ways a club just needs a trophy, League Cup, FA Cup, whatever it is. And I'm not trying to devalue them. They are achievements to win, but if you arguably they would be, a Europa League, Spurs would be capable of, they've been in the Europa League a few times, they would be capable of winning that. Like, focus on and get something, but anyway, they are where they are. We'll see where they're going. We'll see where Pochettino is. It's weird because, it feels almost like they're almost like a club in crisis at the minute, and yet they're not the club anyone's talking about this weekend. That's the funny thing, It's almost like, yeah, they're ninth. They're not had a great start. They've lost 3 games. They just got battered by Brighton, and it was a battering by Brighton, really. The teenager scored a couple of goals against them. Did excellently well, and could be a rising star. But I think that was his Premier League debut. hammered you. Um, but yeah, they're not the main talking point, I guess, of the weekend. Weirdly, um, Everton, Everton losing. I called this one straight away. I called this one as Everton losing. I'll be honest with you. I've said for a while that Marco Silva was going to get fired during the international break. We're into that international break now. It hasn't happened yet as I record this. It could happen. I fully expect it to happen. I will be surprised if he is in charge of their next game against West Ham. I will genuinely be surprised because I people were comparing him to like Allardyce. I saw an article and it was comparing his like points per game with Allardyce, goals scored, etc., etc., etc. And it really was not any better. In fact, the points per game was slightly worse. And yet he has spent an absolute fortune on players. The squad that Allardyce had compared to this squad is very different. Big money signings like Richarlison, Yerry Mina in defence, players like Andre Gomez, Bernard, Moise Keane, and yet he's not taking them anywhere. They're currently, after 8 games, they've lost 5, conceded 13. That whatever people want to talk about other teams, Everton are in a relegation fight right now. They've lost 4 on the trot, and only one of those you would argue would be a team that Everton would be looking to take something from. If they played against, Chelsea and Man City and Liverpool, you'd be like, okay, well, they're hard games, whatever. But we're talking Bournemouth here, losing 3-1. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Bournemouth, but the reality is they're kind of a mid-table team. If Everton have aspirations of top 6, which they should do for the money they're spending, that's something they should be getting a result from, whether it's a draw or better. Sheffield United at home, obviously they should be winning that. Man City, you can argue the Man City one, but 3-1 at home, that's bad. And then Burnley away is Burnley are always a tough opposition. Burnley are right up there in 7th now. They're always a tough game, but 2 shots on target. You can have 60% possession against Burnley. Like, it ain't gonna make a difference at the end of the day. Burnley do what Burnley do, and the thing I see in this Everton team each week is, as much as like the back line seems to kind of be fairly solid, like the midfield and attack seems to rotate like every game. Seems to be players coming in, going out, doing whatever. I don't think he knows what his best kind of midfield is. And there's some excellent, these are all excellent players. Everton have, on paper, have one of the best midfields, in the league. When you look at the fact that they can bring in Andre Gomez, I think Tom Davis is a good player as well. Bernard's a good player. Like, when you look at that, that's a really deep quality midfield. It's not a Man City or a Tottenham or a Liverpool, obviously, but it's a top 6 midfield in my opinion, and it's miles better than like Man United's or someone like that. But it's you could argue maybe Leicester's would be slightly better as well, but otherwise there's not many other teams in the league who could argue a better midfield, and yet Everton are in the relegation zone. They're 3rd from bottom in the league. It's not even like they're having an average season. They're having a disastrous season. My opinion is Marco Silva, I've said this from the beginning, I felt he was overrated. He had half a good season with Watford. People were praising him for what he did with Hull. They got relegated. Whatever you want to say, that's what you'll get judged on, and they got relegated under him. He went to Watford, had half a good season, and then, jumped ship, as it were. Ends up at Everton, and the club has spent millions and millions, hundreds of millions, and have moved absolutely nowhere. In fact, they've got worse and worse under him. They did under Sam Allardyce. Everton are a big club. There's no way they should be in the bottom 3 with this squad as well. But they're in a relegation battle right now. It's you can say it's only 8 games, but you know, we're getting close to a quarter of the way through the season. You know, who knows? It's just been a real shock over weekend for some teams. It really has. It's been some absolute shocker results. Liverpool, Leicester. I mean, I don't want to say Liverpool are lucky, but Liverpool are lucky. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean lucky in a way of like, oh, or they get all this. Liverpool feel like Man United under Ferguson, which is, I think, as good a compliment as you could possibly give. Like, excuse me while I have a drink. Man United under Ferguson just had this way of winning games. They didn't necessarily need to play to the performance. They had players they could bring on who would, change a game, and they just had this aura about them, And Liverpool, I feel, have got that because, for me, it was a penalty. But 95th minute, just that not giving up and. It is something else. Leicester will feel very aggrieved to be walking away with only with nothing. Not getting a point there. They can hold their heads up and say that they competed. They did. Similar possession. Sure, shots on target, nowhere near. But they competed with the European champions, and they were close to close to. Close to getting something from them, which no one else has managed this season, let's face it. I think Liverpool are missing Alisson. I think Liverpool haven't had really any injuries this season, apart from Alisson. They've got a great team to choose from, and they've been using that well. But I feel that Alisson is a major loss for them currently, and I'm not taking anything away from Adrian. I think he's a decent goalkeeper, but I think it's that kind of playing out, from the back. And like, Liverpool haven't looked as good at the back this season as they did last season, without doubt. They've only conceded 6 goals. That's technically the best defence in the league. So, we can't be too harsh on them. But I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Alisson's not there. I think he inspires a lot of confidence. He's obviously much better with his feet. And once he gets back, Liverpool, I think, will continue to push onwards. They are 8 points clear after 8 games. That's pretty darn good. They've won all 8 of their games. They've scored 20 goals, conceded 6. It's hard to fault them right now. They're just a winning machine. The Klopp has got them, down to a T. They're not the... they remind me a lot of, as I said, like a Ferguson Man United, or even, Arsenal, kind of like in terms of the Invincibles. They're not. Man City and Liverpool are so different, yet they're both kind of relentless. It's really interesting to see, because you have these two teams who are kind of dominating the league. Today's result was standing for Man City, but they're kind of dominating the league, and yet I personally kind of feel like they're so different in their styles and what they do, and it's almost like a Barcelona Real Madrid kind of style. Like when Barcelona and Real Madrid were at their peaks, you had Barcelona who played this beautiful like football, like a work of art. Then you had Real Madrid who were kind of more like this kind of battering ram, with Ronaldo up front, and just this kind of relentlessness. And that's kind of what Liverpool are like, in a way, although they do have also this kind of this beautiful football with Firmino, Mane and Salah as well a little bit. It's not a direct comparison, but it kind of feels a little bit like that. And it's just interesting to see these two contrasting styles. But what you do get from both teams is incredibly talented players who are, 100% dialed into what their manager is trying to do, and it's great to see, and a fantastic result for them. Leicester, people are raving about Leicester this season. I think they're doing well. I don't know if they're going to finish in the top 4. I will say that. I think they're going to finish in the top 6, but I don't know if the top 4 is too big a shout. I feel like Chelsea are getting resurgent now. We'll see, but I think they're very good though, Leicester. And I've said before, like they have great depth as well. When you can bring on some of these guys, Perez, Chowdhury, Albrighton, that's good players to bring on. It's not the same quality as Liverpool can bring on, but it is good. So I'm intrigued to see where they're going, basically. There. Let's go Aston Villa 5, Norwich 1. And it could have been more for Villa as well. Like, they missed a penalty. Wesley could have had his hat-trick. I like to see that, though, actually, because I'm really happy for Wesley, because I have a bit of a personal affinity for Wesley, because I had him in FIFA 90, and I really liked him. And obviously that is no relevance to what he's like in real life at all, but it does mean that, sometimes you have a bit of a soft spot. And he was getting a lot of stick, I think, from Villa fans, but he wasn't really getting the service, and he was doing his best. But for me, the Norwich party is over. If you're getting beaten 5-1, at home by Aston Villa, they're leaking goals right now. Norwich, I don't see them staying up at all. Timu Pukki, I think he's overrated. Absolutely, 100%. I think he had a really good start to the season. I think he's a championship striker, and I think I said this before. I'd be surprised if he gets like 12 or 13 this season. But 12 or 13 is not terrible at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't make him a bad footballer or anything like that. Like, Wesley will probably struggle to get more than 12 or 13 this season, but the way people were talking about Pukki was like he was going to be a top goal scorer in the Premier League or something, and it's for me, it's not going to happen. I think Norwich will get relegated. I thought that from the beginning of the season. They've had some really good wins. Obviously, the Man City game was phenomenal, but you're losing 2-0 to Burnley after that, 2-0 to Crystal Palace, 5-1 to Aston Villa. It means nothing who you beat in this league. It matters what your points are, and 6 losses, the most in the league. The inability to get a draw, and look at this, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. Yeah, that inability to get a draw or keep a clean sheet is what ultimately I think will spell Norwich going back down. And that's for what they've got, like, they're not a Premier League quality team, so there's no shame in them going down. They're a very good Championship team, as they proved last season, but for me, they just didn't strengthen enough when they came up. And they've got some very good players who will learn a lot this season, but I'm kind of going to call it now and say that I think they're going to spiral a bit. I think Bournemouth will beat them, and I think they're going to have a very low total. I'm going to be surprised if they get close to 30 this season points. I think they're going to be like 20 to 25. That might be controversial, and I'm sure there's some Norwich fans out there who will totally disagree with me, but I don't think they've got enough to... they're not going to be disastrous like a Derby or anything like that, clearly. And on their day, they can put in a really good performance, but you lost 5-1 to Aston Villa at home, guys. It's done. Your season's done. 21 goals conceded, the most in the Premier League this season out of any team, is what will spell their doom, basically. That's very simple, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you scored 10 goals. If you concede 21, you don't win football games. As for Aston Villa, can they stay up? I mean, at the minute, it's looking good. Brighton game's a big one. They've been close on a few games. Like, I do feel that. The Palace game, they were almost unlucky not to get that VAR goal. They were unlucky against Arsenal as well, although a bit naive, to be fair. Burnley as well. I think with Aston Villa, they need 3 teams worse than them. Currently, there are 3 teams worse than them, so they can stay up. But maybe that 5-1 will be a bit of a turning point. I don't know. I still think they're really going to struggle. They're better equipped though than a lot of other sides to stay up. So you have to give them that. You have to. Watford, Sheffield United. In a way, I think this is a good point for Sheffield United. Henderson pulled off some really good saves. After a poor, a real howler against who was it they played last? I can't remember, but a howler basically. I think it was Man City, wasn't it? Was it Man City? Now I need to know. Liverpool, sorry. I knew it was one of the top teams. Yeah, after a real howler. And this is a team who are trying to make the best of what they've got, in the setup, in the tactics, and they're doing a decent job. I don't know if they can continue it. As I've said this before, I think there could be a point where they fall away a little bit, goals drying up, etc., people losing, confidence. It'd be a massive ask, and if they stay up, that would be a fantastic achievement. But 9 points from 8 games, that's, not relegation form. I'll give them credit for that. Only 7 goals conceded when you're looking at teams below them, well into double figures. Is really good. The goals for isn't the worst, but there. I do feel like Watford were maybe a bit for the taking. I'm genuinely, seriously worried about Watford. I mean, they are. I don't know. You look at Watford and you think they've got some really great players. Decore, Pereira, Andre Gray. Danny Welbeck's a proven Premier League striker. He's a 10 to 15 goal a season kind of guy when he was in form. They got one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Decent defence. So, Delafeu on the bench, Will Hughes on the bench, and that is if Watford do get relegated, I'm calling it now. This is one of the strongest teams who would get relegated. I think they're going to scrape out of it, but they got to start scraping right now because they're in deep doo-doo there. But good luck to Sheffield United. They look at that. They outplayed them. Passes, touches, shots, possession. Unlucky not to take something from there. Like, that's Watford at home against a promoted side. That's something else, isn't it? It really is. West Ham, Crystal Palace. Ooh, I've been enjoying the football recently. Look at these results from Palace. Take that away, and there's some genuinely great results for Crystal Palace. Where can we start with this game? Okay, let's start with West Ham. That was a fantastic goal they scored, a really good goal. And I thought when that went in, I wasn't watching the game, but I was listening to it on the radio, and I was like, from the way they were talking, I was just thinking, okay, that's, we're done now. I genuinely expected West Ham to beat us because I think they're a really good side. They're just West Ham, they're so West Ham-y. They're just capable of just throwing it away. And they played really well. They scored that goal, and it's almost like they just thought, oh, the job's done. We can just, step off now. And you can't do that against Crystal Palace. They're a team who don't give up. Whatever people want to say about Palace, and people say a lot about Palace, people say a lot about Hodgson. For me, Roy Hodgson is absolutely 100% the man you want in charge of a mediocre team. He is like the king. He got Fulham into like a European final. Was it a final or was it a semi-final at least? I think big jobs are a little bit beyond Roy, but get him in a slightly average team, he does wonders. He really does. Blackburn, I think he did really well at. Fulham, he obviously did really well at. Palace, he's doing brilliantly at, in my opinion. And you look at this Palace side, and we have one player here who we didn't have last season. Okay, two, James McCarthy, but um, and that's Gary Cahill, who we made captain. Fantastic signing, in my opinion. Absolutely, I cannot believe another team didn't come in for him. Massive experienced, professional to the last, and a brilliant, defender. Yes, he's getting on a little bit, but even if he's only good for one season, that's enough for us. And him and Martin Kelly is massively underrated. Like, a lot of Palace fans have been saying this for a long time, that Sacco and Tompkins were a really great partnership, but every single time Martin Kelly has come into the team, he has performed. I think we signed him for like maybe 3 million, something like that, ridiculous, from Liverpool, and he gets a lot of stick because he's not a fashionable kind of player, but he gives 100%. What you can say about a lot of Palace players is a lot of them are not the greatest players on earth, but they will give you 100% on the pitch. We're getting better, we're getting more quality in the team, but when you look at a midfield which has got Jeff Schlupp, MacArthur, Kayute and McCarthy, it's not the most creative midfield, is it, in the world? And yet we've scored 2 goals. Van Arnold with a penalty because Milivojevic is suspended for this game, which is why he wasn't there at all. Since I can't remember the date, but it's at least the last 3-4 seasons, something like that. I think Palace have had the most penalties in the Premier League and scored the most penalties in the Premier League. Wilf Zaha is a big part of that, clearly. Although it wasn't him who actually got fouled this time. I think it was MacArthur or McCarthy. I get those two confused. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, Palace, they keep going, and right to the end, Jordan Ayew with that, I saw some people say, oh, look, Palace scored this controversial goal. It wasn't controversial. Like, it was ruled offside incorrectly. VAR checked it and it was correct. And this is what bugs me about VAR. I try not to talk about it because it's just ridiculous. But what bugs me about VAR is when people turn around and say things like, oh, but it's millimeters that he's onside, whatever. Yes, but he's onside. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a millimeter or a meter. Like, that there has to be a limit. There has to be a guide where you go, this is onside, this is offside. And if he is onside and it's a millimeter, then you go, okay, that was close, but he is onside. It's not controversial to give the goal if he's onside, which he is. That's kind of, I don't get, people don't understand this about, things like offside. The handball thing, I understand, because that's a little bit more open to interpretation. But offside is like the ball crossing the line. When the ball crosses the line, the referee knows it goes off on his arm, doesn't it? Like, he has a little watch thing, and there's things, the ball, if the ball is not like a millimeter not over the line completely, he doesn't give the goal. It's the same with offside. Like, I don't understand what people don't get about that. Of course, I'm sure West Ham fans feel massively aggrieved, but at the end of the day, the goal was onside. It was a goal, and like, I wouldn't feel aggrieved at VAR. I'd feel aggrieved at the fact that the team just dropped off after they scored. They should have carried on, but they didn't, and they threw it away. And that's why West Ham probably won't make top 6 this season, because they just throw these things away. They're a bit Spursy in that respect. They've got a great side. There's a lot of real quality in the team, but at the end of the day, this should be your bread and butter. You go 1-0 up against Palace, that should be 3 points in the bag, and they've walked away with nothing. We'll see where these teams end up. I don't expect Palace to stay up there. I'll be happy if we make it around here, mid-table-ish. That's fine. We need a striker. No offence to Jordan Ayew, who did convert it well, and he is just such a he's just such he must just piss off other teams so much, because he's such a crap striker. Like, we paid so little for him, and he is crap, and he scores goals, and it must be so frustrating when, you know, West Ham has spent like 50 million on Sebastian Haller. I mean, he did score, to be fair, but like, you got beat by Jordan Ayew. That's gonna hurt. I think it was the same with Man United, wasn't it? Jordan Ayew, what a legend. But yeah, I'm a very happy Palace. I don't remember being this happy this early in the season as a Crystal Palace fan for a long time. Like, Palace are the kings of just having a crap start and then coming back from it. So the fact that we've had a good start is now making me terrified about what's going to happen in the second half of the season. My default position with Palace is we're going to get relegated. So being up in 6th right now is terrifying. I will say this, we've only scored 8 goals, and you can see teams around us scored way more. We've only conceded 8, which is the 3rd best in the league, or 4th best. So that's pretty decent. But we have to score more goals. We've got Man City next. That'll be interesting. We beat Man City before. I got a feeling they're going to be a bit pissed, though. So I don't know if this is going to be a good time to play them. So we'll see. But yeah, moving on. Arsenal, Bournemouth. David Luiz, legend. I think Arsenal were lucky to just scrape this. Bournemouth had some chances, but this is a good win for Arsenal. And I was thinking about this today before that game even played. Like, I was like, for all the crap we've been giving Arsenal, they've only lost 1 game this season, and they're 3rd. If they actually had a decent defence, who knows, where they would be right now. We talk about them not having these leaders, Granit Xhaka not being good enough to play for them, defence being terrible, David Luiz being an utter liability. They're 3rd in the league. They're not doing that badly, are they? Like, I think nearly every Arsenal fan would actually be like, yeah, 3rd, I'll take 3rd this season, Like Emery, it feels like Emery's constantly under pressure, and yet they're 3rd in the league. What do people want? They're 1 point behind Man City. If you said to an Arsenal fan, after 8 games, you're 3rd in the league, 1 point behind Man City, every single one of them would take that. Not one of them would turn around and be like, no, I think we can do better than that. I guarantee it. So it's weird, isn't it? Because they clearly have not played that well this season. They clearly have not been, they have been a liability at the back. Like, not all of that is still true. And yet somehow they're managing to win some football games. A big part of that is their attack, and they had some quality there, even though Lacazette is still out. They've had some very good youngsters coming on. I really think this Martinelli kid could be very, very good. Midweek he really tore apart. Can't remember where they played now, but in the Europa League, he looked very good. Yeah, they've got Kieran Tierney coming back. He played it as well. They've got Bellerin coming back as well. He played, I think, midweek. Willock's looking pretty decent coming in. Torreira, for me, I just think he hasn't been good enough. But we'll see. And they've got players like Guendouzi coming through. He's looking good. Ceballos is looking decent. There's a lot to be positive about, I think, for Arsenal. They're bringing through some youngsters who are really looking good. They've got to sort out this defence. They've got to sort out a leader if they want to compete at the top. But maybe we need to lay off Emery a little bit. He's not doing a terribly bad job. He really isn't looking that bad. Nearly a quarter of the way through the season, Arsenal 3rd. It's not so bad. Next up, Man City Wolves. Wow. I checked in on this game at half time, and it was 0-0, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I thought Man City would be winning this by now, but I was like, yeah, they'll probably still win, won't they? 1-0, 2-0, something. I checked it full time, and I'm like, wait, what? How? I watched Match of the Day, and Man City defensively were terrible. In so much as, like, it wasn't that Wolves Wolves had like a couple of lucky breaks, and that was it. They had several breaks. Otamendi is ridiculously bad at the back. They gave the ball away at the back so many times, and Wolves counterattacked them. They had so many warnings early on. Cutrone with a terrible finish. Awful, like when he was like one-on-one as well, and other players as well, and last-ditch tackles, saving them, etc., or good saves. They had so many warnings, and they were still misplacing passes constantly at the back. Going forward, Wolves defended exceptionally well. They had a couple of chances. David Silva hit the crossbar with a free kick. Sterling had a good chance. God damn you for not scoring, because you're my triple captain. But Wolves thoroughly deserved it, I think. Man City looked well off it. And this is coming back to the thing we've said time and time again, where that lack of central defensive cover, I think ultimately is what is going to cost them the title this season. They have so much depth in midfield and attack, and they have nothing in the centre back, and it's going to hurt them. Otamendi is not the guy who's going to win you a league, I don't think. Although I think he has won the league with them, but my point stands. Crystal Palace next. We saw them come back. How angry they were losing to Norwich. I'm slightly terrified about an angry Man City, coming to Selhurst Park. We'll see. I will say Adama Traore had a magnificent game. Started off at right wing back, was brilliant. When Cutrone came off, he got pushed up alongside Jimenez, who was also brilliant as well. And he finished so calmly, and he's so quick that you wonder how he isn't playing at a bigger side than Wolves, with no disrespect to Wolves. The reason being that a lot of the time his end product has not been there, but he looked established, like in defence. He looked, he was up against Raheem Sterling, and that's no mean feat. I wouldn't say he had him in his pocket, but he controlled him, and Sterling was limited in his chances, or what he could do with the ball. And then when he got moved up front, he was brilliant, running on to balls, still running all the way to the end, lightning pace, great finishes. You see that sort of play and you're like, this guy should be playing for one of the top clubs in the world. But the consistency has never really been there with him. So it'll be interesting to see if this pushes him on and where he goes. But I think Wolves are getting back now, They had that patchy spell. They're up to 11th. They were in the relegation zone after, they had 4 draws and 2 losses at one point. And they were pretty bad, but they're getting back there now. I don't think I ever thought Wolves were going to get relegated or anything like that, but clearly Europa League had an effect, as it always seems to do. But they have a lot of real quality, so you could see they were going to, push onwards, and that's a fantastic result for them. If you'd have said to me Man City would have lost twice within the first 8 games, I would have been very surprised. If you'd have told me they would have lost to a newly promoted side and Wolves, maybe the Wolves thing I could have believed, because Wolves were great last season, but if you'd said to me they're losing to teams in the bottom half of the table, as Wolves were before they won this game, I'd be very surprised. Man City have often been very good at dispatching teams, worse than them. Crystal Palace being the exception. But, who knows? Is it the beginning of the end for Man City? I don't think so. I don't think there's a crisis just yet. I don't know if they can catch Liverpool. Big thing will always be injuries. Man City were without De Bruyne today. That showed. He has been phenomenal for them. This guy Phil Foden, though, I don't know what he's got to do to get a game. Who's he got to murder to get onto that pitch, and affect things? I can understand you've got Bernardo Silva, Jesus, whatever, but unlocking a defence, you feel like he can do a good job there. But yeah, we'll see. Next up, we had Chelsea beating Southampton. Chelsea are really coming back into it now. They've been getting some big scores recently. 5-2 Wolves. They're always scoring. 18 goals. That's second only to Liverpool, Man City in the league. This is a far cry from that team that got beat 4-0 on the opening day of the season by Man United. This is a team hitting form with some very good quality youngsters as well. If you think Arsenal have got some good youngsters coming through, these guys are looking phenomenal. And then bringing on players like Batshuayi as well, who scored, brilliant, really good goals. Tammy Abraham with another goal. I don't know how many that is now. 8 in 8. That's not bad, is it? He carries on like that, he will be doing very well. They've still got, I think, problems in defence. I don't think you want to have Azpilicueta and Kurt Zouma in there at the minute, but they can build on that. They're looking good. Southampton, no one's really talking about Southampton. They've lost 3 in a row. They've only won two all season. Only scored 8, conceded 15. My feeling is with Southampton is that if Everton and Watford get their shit together, then Southampton will get relegated. I don't think Southampton will finish any higher than 16th this season. That would be my opinion, and I do think they're going to get relegated. I don't think they're good enough out there. They are getting beaten badly, that is a bad loss. But Chelsea are very good. I think they're resurgent 5th now. A lot of people were saying, they're going to finish mid-table under Frank Lampard, etc., etc. The one thing I'll say about Frank Lampard, and when you look at Chelsea and Man United, you've got 2 club legends coming back to their clubs and taking over, both with limited managerial experience, certainly none at the highest level, taking over massive clubs who are in, I wouldn't say crisis, but in a little bit of turmoil. Not, it's a couple of years since Chelsea compete. Well, they won the league, but competed for the league. 3 years, I think, isn't it? 3-4 years, something like that. Certainly a long time for Man United. Squads which kind of need a refresh. In Chelsea's, they couldn't do anything. In Man United's, they just didn't do anything. Well, they did a bit, but not enough. And you look at Frank Lampard at Chelsea, and he's come in with a style of football he wants to play. This attacking football. We're going to take the game to them. Sure, we might concede some goals. Defence is not our best option, but we're going to play like this. These youngsters coming through are good enough to play. They're going to play. I'm going to choose Mason Mount over a Barkley, etc. Tammy Abraham's my striker. He's going to play up front. And you look at it and you go, that's not too dissimilar to Ollie, is it? He's turned around and said, I'm gonna give the kids a chance. The difference I feel is that the style of play. Like, you can see Chelsea scored 18 goals. Man United have scored 9. Sure, they've only conceded 8 to Chelsea's 14. But you can't win football matches if you don't score goals, and that's been Man United's problems. They're not scoring any goals, and I'll go into them in a bit. But what Chelsea have in abundance is creative midfielders. You look at them today, and you've just bringing off the bench like Kovacic, Pulisic, etc. They had Barkley didn't even use. You got Hudson-Odoi who can take players like Mason Mount. He's been playing brilliantly. Williams, a very attacking kind of midfielder as well. Even Jorginho is a far cry from the Jorginhos we saw last season. Kante getting in there with a goal. These players are really pushing forward, really attacking, and that's the difference you see. So, full credit to Frank Lampard. I think I said at the time of his appointment, like, he's the best guy to go in there and do this job now. I think the reality of the situation was that if they hadn't have had the transfer ban like I wouldn't have said he was the best man for the job. I think he still would have got the job, but I would have said they needed to go for someone with more experience first. But you know, sometimes you can find the right solution in the time of need. You know, when by taking away the choices, sometimes it can. Man United, had a choice of so many managers. They got the manager they wanted, Jose Mourinho. It didn't really work out for him, did it? I would argue that Mourinho was not entirely unsuccessful at Man United. He did win Europa League. He won the League Cup as well, I think, or FA Cup, one of the two. He came second in the league. I think Man United fans would give their right arm to be winning cups and finishing second in the league currently. But yeah, full credit to Frank Lampard. He's it's entertaining. You always look at Chelsea. They're going to attack. They're going to take on their opponents, and I'm not sure they've got the defence yet to strike a title challenge. But at the minute, I think they're looking good for a top 4 finish. They've just got a lot of strength in depth. I think up front, and we'll see how they do. Newcastle next, and well, we're going to talk about Newcastle now. Newcastle, Man United. Newcastle, in a lot of ways, are one of the worst teams in the league. Like on paper, there is not a lot going on. Steve Bruce, much maligned. Steve Bruce is not a bad manager. In the same way Roy Hodgson gets a lot of stick. I feel like Steve Bruce gets a lot of unnecessary stick. Yes, he's not going to, tactically, destroy the opponent and outthink them and, do stuff like that. But what he does is he organises teams, he motivates teams, he gets them going. And I feel like he kind of schooled Ole Gunnar Solskjaer today. Man United, this is the worst Man United team I think I've seen in my lifetime. That is, pretty bad. I've had this Wikipedia page up. This Wikipedia page is the last season under Sir Alex Ferguson, 2012-2013. Man United won the league ahead of Aston Villa. Manchester City. Why the hell I said Aston Villa then? They won the league. I'll try to find it. Here we go. With 89 points. They were 11 points clear of Man City. 86 goals scored. They lost 5 games. They drew 5 games. Won 28. And a lot of people said that this was one of Ferguson's worst teams. De Gea in goal, who they currently still have. They did play also a bit of Anders Lingard as well. Played 10 games as well. Who's not the greatest goalkeeper. Raphael played a lot at right back. Evra was left back. You had Phil Jones, Rio Ferdinand, Johnny Evans, and a little bit of Nemanja Vidic in there. I think he got injured quite a lot. Phil Jones still there. Midfield-wise, you didn't have a lot going on there. A little bit of Giggsy. Carrick was the main guy who they kind of played around. He was the pivot, if you like, there, the playmaker. They played a little bit of Giggs, tiny little bit of Scholes, bit of Cleverley. Tom Cleverley, who plays for Watford now. Bit of Kagawa as well in there, but certainly one of the weakest midfields you've seen in a Man United team. And up front they had Rooney, who didn't play that much. I can't remember if he got injured or if this was the year when he was having that bit of spat who's come to the end of his contract as rumours going to go to City, etc. I can't remember if that was the thing. You had the super sub Hernandez, who was coming off the bench and scoring, and you had an informed Robin van Persie who ended up on 26 goals in the league, who was clearly brilliant. Now, when you look at Manchester United's squad currently, David De Gea in goal. Defence-wise, still got Phil Jones. but doesn't play. Ashley Young, he's still there. You've got Lindelof, Maguire, you got, Bissaka. Luke Shaw has been injured. But you had Johnny Evans, Rio Ferdinand, Nemanja Vidic as centre-backs. Like, those three players are so experienced and they're such leaders. Like, and you compare that to Marcus Rojo and Lindelof and Eric Bailly and they played today, Twanzebe, youngster. Like, it's a world apart, isn't it, really? Midfield, I said that this was one of the weakest Man United midfields I can certainly remember, with Carrick in there. But my God, it's not as weak as this midfield, is it? Fred, Lingard, Pereira. I mean, not one of these midfielders would get into that Man United side there. Not one of them. You could argue Daniel James had a decent season. But Daniel James is brought in as a player for the future. He was not brought in to be their saviour. It feels like everything creative goes through Daniel James at Man United currently. And why the hell is that the case? Because, he was 15 million, but I think he was brought in as like, oh, we'll play him a little bit this season. Next season, he'll have a bigger role and then hopefully kick on from there. He's like their go-to guy now. When did this happen? Fred is terrible buy. Absolutely horrific. Matic. I don't think Matic is a bad player. I just think he's not the player they want. They're playing with two defensive midfielders. It's so negative. McTominay, it's hard not to compare him to someone like Darren Fletcher, who I think was ill that season. But I would take Darren Fletcher any day over McTominay. Like, far, far better player. A player like Kagawa, I'd take over any one of those, over a Mata any day of the week. Currently, I think Mata in his prime was a brilliant player, but he's not in his prime anymore. Pereira shouldn't be anywhere near a Man United squad. Lingard as well is just not good enough to be in there. And then you come down to the forward lineup, and Man United, they had Rooney, Hernandez, Van Persie. Now they have Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood. I mean, Jordan Ayew's got as many goals as Marcus Rashford. I know Martial's been injured, but I banged on about it last week, and I'm watching this on Match of the Day. I listened to the game as well, and I watched it on Match of the Day, and Man United are trying to play this kind of passing game, but their midfielders are constantly giving the ball away, constantly. Fred was just horrific. And they're not creating anything. So then they start trying to go a bit longer to Rashford. Marcus Rashford is not the type of player you go long to. He doesn't have the hold-up play of a centre forward. It's not in his game currently. It could be one day. It probably won't be at this point. But that's not his skill. You know who is good at that? The guy you sold, Romelu Lukaku. Yeah. Brilliant decision that was. I don't think Lukaku would be in this team saving it, but I guarantee you they would have beaten Newcastle if Lukaku was up front and not Rashford. Guarantee you. There's such a difference there. I'm not saying Rashford's a bad player either. I just don't think he's a centre forward. I think he plays well as a three up front. I think he can play quite well behind in almost a number 10 role, like behind a striker. I've seen him do that as well, and he's been quite good. Like, he needs to kind of run at players. He needs to have those kind of little balls putting him in, behind the defence and stuff like that. He's not a hold-up player at all. That's just not in his game. He's quite tall, and I think that gives the perception of it, but he doesn't have that mentality. Yeah, I think he's over 6 foot tall. I think some people see it like that, but you look at him and he doesn't have the upper body strength. He doesn't have the football brain of that type of player. You know, he's very much a runner or getting behind kind of player. And I also don't think he is as good a finisher as he needs to be. You look at someone like how good a finisher like Harry Kane is, up front, or an Aguero, or even Tammy Abraham. I'm looking at him and going, this guy's a great finisher. Like he almost reminded me of a not quite so good Alan Shearer. Like Tammy Abraham is a little bit like he's getting there. Just give him a sniff in the box and he puts it away. Abraham's not quite there yet, but the rate he's going, he could be. Rashford, I don't see that at all. A million miles away from being a decent squad. I was listening as well to like the fan reactions and things like that afterwards, and a lot of the time it's quite sort of people overreacting to things and stuff like that. But I was just listening to it and generally thinking like, none of these fans are like really overreacting. Like a lot of them were saying, what we've got is relegation form right now, and they're not wrong. Like they've got 9 points from 8 games. You take away that 4-0 flattering win at the beginning of the season, and they've scored 5 goals, which is pretty much level with what the average would be down here. They've only conceded 8, to be fair, and I will say that their defence on paper is the strongest part of the squad. Like, I think De Gea is a good goalkeeper. He's certainly not, or doesn't seem to be playing as well as he has been. Whether that's because the defence isn't quite so good, we'll see. But I think they've been unlucky with injuries in defence. I think that Lindelof or Bailly or Rojo or Jones are not the answer to play alongside Maguire. I think Tuanzebe looks good. Listen, I saw Fosu Mensah on loan at Palace, and he was brilliant, and he can't get a sniff in. And yet, Ashley Young is playing. I don't quite get that personally. I mean, listen, I'm not there on the training pitch, am I? So I don't know. Dalot played, got injured. I think he's just permanently been injured in his entire lifetime at Man United. I think the defence is the positive part, and they spent some money on it. But my God, I talk about Arsenal's midfield not being very good, but it's 10 million times better than Man United's. I don't think Arsenal's midfield's great, but I mean, this is a terrible Man United squad. And why has it got here? I mean, I know they've got injuries. Ole Gunnar came out after the match and said like, it's difficult when you've got like 6 players out from your opening day squad. It's like, you're Man United. Like, you should be able to beat a terrible Newcastle team, with... And I will say, Newcastle played really well, and I will talk about them, but they did play very, very well. But in reality, like, their form has been terrible. They had 1 win all season. They looked awful. Took a battering from Leicester 5-0 last time. It's just... You're sitting there saying, we got 6 players out. Yeah, to be fair, Martial playing and Pogba playing, could have made a difference. But you've got to have better depth than that. You're going to get injuries. If Liverpool get injuries, if Chelsea get injuries, if Spurs get injuries, like, they cope with it. Man City, obviously, they cope with it. Everybody gets injuries. You can't turn around and be like, if we'd have had these players, we would have done it. Like, at the end of the day, they made a terrible decision getting rid of Sanchez and Lukaku. Now listen, I think Sanchez, take away things like money, okay? Because Man United clearly don't care about money, because they will throw money at anyone. Like the amount, they had the 4th highest wages of any team in the world, and they're currently 12th in the Premier League. Like, they will throw money at anything. But take away the money. Sanchez, for me, like, he always looked poor in Manchester. Like, something was up. I think he's done okay at Inter since he's got there. I understand getting rid of him. Like, I would have too. I don't see that as a terrible decision. And I can understand the reason for getting rid of Lukaku. But for God's sake, we knew Lukaku was going. For about 3 months, like, Inter were signalling they wanted to do that deal. And yet they brought no one in. No one. Like, I remember when Louis van Gaal was like, laughed at because he brought in Martial when they were talking about, they needed to bring in another striker. But at least he brought someone in. Man United, gone into your season with Rashford, Martial and Greenwood. I don't know if Mason Greenwood's going to be a great player, great Premier League striker, but he isn't one now. So relying on him if you want to achieve anything. And it's not good enough for a club the size of Man United to turn around and be like, oh, we'll have a few seasons and bed the youngsters in. Because for all intents and purposes, Man United are a business. This is how they're being run, by Ed Woodward and co. They're being run for profit, and they won't settle for mid-table, because what will happen is they won't become as big a brand in Asia, in Americas, in Africa, etc. And the profit will go down. The reason why they can pay these extraordinary wages is because their turnover is so high. But if the turnover is not high, because with all the best will, but a lot of people in Asia and places like that, support teams because they're big teams, or they have a player from that nation in their team or whatever. They support the teams that are winning, and they're the big teams. And historically, obviously, Man United are a big team and have done well. But if they start becoming mid-table every season, like that won't be the case, will it? Sponsors are not. What sponsor is turning around and going like, oh, I'm so happy. Chevrolet must be so happy they're emblazoned on the chest of Man United after that game. It was a pitiful performance from Man United. Newcastle played well, okay, but they are not good enough to be beating Man United. Like a Ferguson Man United would have steamrolled Newcastle. And whatever people want to say about, like, oh, those days are over, and it was 2012, 13, it was a good sort of like 5-6 years ago. But it wasn't that long ago under Mourinho that, as I said, they won the Europa League, etc. And that was seen beneath them almost to win the Europa League. My God, they would give their right arm to win the Europa League right now, wouldn't they? Because they couldn't even beat like a mediocre Dutch team. They couldn't beat Rochdale. My God, it's absolutely shocking. It really is. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not a Premier League manager. Like, if you look at the team, tactically, there's nothing going on there. Nothing. There's no style, there's no shape, there's no substance. Clearly, he's not motivating the players because they come out in lackluster performance after lackluster performance. You look at someone like Sean Dyche at Burnley, they're 7th, okay? Their players are motivated, okay? You never turn around and see Burnley not give 100%. Like, they're out there performing week in, week out. They have a style and a system that they play that they know flawlessly. Yes, it's not to everyone's taste, but they work with what they've got. They haven't got the players to play tiki-taka football, so they play how they play. They have a style. That's how they play. Eddie Howe's Bournemouth, again, not always the most consistent side in the world, but they have this style, this recognisable style, Sheffield United as well, making the best of what they've got. Manchester United, I don't even know what the hell they are, They started off like, 4-2-3-1, then they moved to like 4-4-2, but there's just their players don't seem to know what on earth they're doing. It's just really, really terrible. They're talking about strengthening in January at the end of the season, but honest to God, who wants to come here? Like, I find it hilarious that we sold Aaron Wan-Bissaka to them for 50 million because he wants to play for a big club. They're 12th and Crystal Palace is 6th. I find that I will sleep well tonight, laughing to myself about that. It's hilarious. It really is. And they've got Liverpool next after the international break. Liverpool going to tear them apart. Well, I mean, the problem is, like, as I said, a tale of two teams here with, Chelsea and Man United. I see Chelsea, I see them getting better every week, see them doing better things. Yeah, their defenders are not quite good enough. They need someone in there. They can't get those players in because, of bans or whatever. But you can see the improvement in players. The young ones coming through looking good. Man United, Ole getting worse and worse and worse. You got the job because of the PSG result. Idiotically, the board decided to do, before the end of the season, sign him up. I don't know why. To boost the stock exchange. I don't know why. He wasn't going anywhere when he was interim manager. He wasn't like PSG was going to phone him up and say, hey, do you want to come manage us? Because he was at his dream job already. He wanted the Man United job. He's a legend at the club. The fans love him. He was never going to go to any other club. They could have waited till the end of the season. He gets the job. Suddenly results start dipping off. Or, as I'd like to say, results got realistic. Because he had an easy run when he took over. And it was easy to pick up a team who had been emotionally and mentally battered by Mourinho, who had to go, by the way. Mourinho brought that on himself. Mourinho is a much better manager than Ole, without a doubt. It's a massive downgrade bringing Ole in, but Mourinho did it to himself because, he went into this, dark place because he was so fucked off with the board, I think. Ole's a yes man. I think the board love that, so I don't think they're going to sack him. Actually, I think they need to, but they're not going to because he's a yes man. He's never blaming a lack of spending or anything like that. He wants to bring through the kids. They're like, oh, brilliant, we don't have to spend any money. But at the end of the day, he ain't going to get the results. And so they have to think about, if I ran Man United right now, I mean, I don't know, if they appointed me the CEO, of Man United, I would immediately bring in a technical director. This has been an ongoing joke, I tell you. Man United apparently have been looking for a technical director for 6 months. How does one of the club with like one of the highest turnover in the world, I wouldn't say the biggest club in the world, but certainly top 5 in the world, cannot attract a technical director? And I'm not talking about a Rio Ferdinand or a Patrice Evra or any bullshit like that. An actual technical director, somebody who they can bring in who will look after, recruitment and scouting and kind of almost bring in a system and then allow their manager or coach, to actually focus on, on the pitch. Someone to think about the big picture stuff, the long-term stuff. Let the coach, think about the short-term stuff, the matches coming up. And then appoint a coach who actually has a style, a system, a way they want to play, and give them time to do that. People are saying give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer time. Well, why? What is he doing? Is he trying to implement a system which is taking time to get used to? No, he's not doing anything. So why would you give him time? I'm all for giving managers time. If you have a manager come in and they have to implement a system, they have to change things, give them time. Like, I kind of feel bad for Frank de Boer when he took over at Crystal Palace because he was trying to bring a system into Palace. They panicked and fired him. There was some improvement going, when we had that terrible run, but they just didn't feel like they could stick with that, and that is what will come in. You look at West Ham as well, like since what's his face has come in, Pellegrini. Is it Pellegrini? Yeah, I think Pellegrini's come in. He is implementing his style and his system that he wants to kind of bring in, and they might not get it this season, but they're bringing it in. Spurs are the same with Pochettino. It took him a while to kind of bring it in and get these players in and get this system going that he wants to play. But Man United just don't seem to have it. I mean, is the system they want to play really what they just played against Newcastle? Like, people slag off Emery because they're like, oh, why the hell are they passing out from the back all the time when, you know, he hasn't got the players to do it? But at least he believes in a system of what he's doing, and this is the way he wants to play. Like, you know what he's trying to do. But like this, where, you know, Man United have 3 shots on target, you know, the entire game. They didn't have a shot on target against AZ Alkmaar of the Netherlands midweek. You know, it's nearly 70% possession, but not doing anything with it, and it's just phenomenally bad. You know, you can give people time to just. I mean, this is the weird thing, because in business, at the end of the day, if you have a manager who's running something, say you have a manager who's running a cafe, for example, if you know, if you're looking at it and going, this guy is not, you know, he's not doing anything, you know, to improve what we're doing. Like, you know, it's getting worse. You know, we're losing more money. He's not doing anything to improve it. You know, we've given him the money he wants to invest in certain positions. And people can turn around and say that, like, oh, he hasn't had the money to spend at Man United. I'm sorry, but you spent 70 million on a centre back, 50 million on a right back. Yeah, you sold Lukaku, and net spend. People talk about net spend like, oh, his net spend was only 65 million. Are you fucking joking me? I'd love to see Crystal Palace spend 65 million, and we're 6th place. For the love of God, like, you could get better players than what you've got for a lot less money. Man United, you really could. You could buy much better players than Andres Pereira for a lot less than you think. You know, it staggers me at the end of the day. But anyway, they have given him money to spend, whatever you want to say. But also, he's not getting anything extra out of the players who, you know, are there already. Like, they're not looking like better players. You know, I talk all the time about Guardiola and how he improves players. You know, when they come along, Sterling has turned into world class, in my opinion. De Bruyne, you know, a phenomenal player now. He was very good when he came along, but he's much better now. You know, really improving players. You know, same with Klopp at Liverpool. He's not doing this at Man United. I'm not seeing any player improve. And people can turn around and be like, oh, he's not been there that long. It took Klopp a while to get him, but Klopp had this vision, this style that he wanted to play, and he knew he needed to get certain players in to do that, and he addressed it. But he still worked with what he had. You know, he had this system, this style, and I don't think any Man United fans would be too bothered if they didn't win anything for a couple of seasons, if they saw some improvement, they saw some a style come in, and consistency. There's the same with Chelsea as well. I don't think anybody would have a problem at Chelsea right now, as long as they looking like they're improving and they have this vision and this plan going forward. Man United don't have any of that. They have nothing. They're not going to get relegated. There was way worse teams than them. But, well, if they play like this every game, they'll get relegated, absolutely. But something will have to happen, whether it's they bring a striker in January, whether it's they get rid of Ollie and bring someone else in. But what top managers are out of work right now? I'm actually just Googling this. Because I'm kind of fascinated. With like who is who is kind of being linked to Man United. Right, so for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been at the club for 9 months. In my opinion, that's enough time to see an improvement or a type of playing. You haven't seen that. So the manager's being linked with the job, Mauricio Pochettino. Well, I mean, something's happening at Spurs. Will Pochettino walk this season? I don't think so. I don't think they'll sack him. So that'll be interesting. Allegri, I mean, not managing the Premier League, but certainly a top manager. Brendan Rodgers, I don't think he's going to leave Leicester to go to Man United this early. Laurent Blanc, I think he's being linked because of the Man United thing. I don't think Laurent Blanc's the answer there. Eric Ten Hag, who is the current Ajax manager. That's not a bad shout, That is a guy with a vision, a way of playing, who sticks to it. Ajax, did a lot for, what they were, for what they had last season. Nearly, very close to getting to a European final with a club which essentially has to sell all its best players all the time. That is not a bad shout. Next manager linked, Michael Carrick. No. Why? The idiots. Jesus Christ. Arsene Wenger's the next manager linked. I mean, I guess maybe till the end of the season, but who knows? Rafa Benitez till the end of the season. It's not a terrible shout. It'd get you up there. He has a system. He has a way of playing. He's a very good manager. Gareth Southgate. No. Julian Nagelsmann of Hoffenheim. Not a terrible shout either. I wouldn't necessarily go there, but he at least has a system, a style, and he could push onwards. Ancelotti. Ancelotti's a very good manager. He's shown that. Not necessarily sure he would leave Napoli to come to Man United mid-season, but you never know. And Conte, I don't think he would leave Internazionale when he's just taken over, and it would be hilarious as he's just signed Lukaku and Sanchez. But there are the managers in there who you can see would have a style and come in. I feel like all of those managers could have joined when they signed Ole on. I don't know why they. That is, for me, that would be like Crystal Palace, like giving the job to like Julian Speroni, and then having one game where we had a great comeback and beating a few bad teams, then be like, oh, you just take the job, Julian. You'd be like, well, surely we can attract a manager with some experience. And Man United should be able to attract a brilliant manager, but I do kind of feel like almost like they've shot themselves in the foot really with their system, because clearly the manager's not having enough of a say on transfers. Like Mourinho was obviously pissed because he wanted he wanted this centre back and he wasn't allowed it. So if managers are not getting a say on, or coaches are not getting a say on transfers, like, does that put off managers? They're not wanting to go there. Is it just such a poisoned atmosphere? I mean, you kind of look at it and like the managers who've gone and left Man United, Moyes, Mourinho, and Louis van Gaal, well-respected managers, but can't seem to get a job right now. It's like the poisoned chalice. I banged on about Man United too much, to be fair, so I apologise. But as I say, it's fascinating. Yeah, it was a terrible weekend for some of the clubs, and this is probably the first season I've seen where we generally have some top clubs really in danger of not getting anywhere near the top six since the days of Leicester winning the league almost. And Everton down near the bottom there. Man United in the bottom half of the league, Tottenham ninth. All and not there through. Oh, they like the Man City game, for example. Man City lost 2-0 to Wolves, but Man City, yes, defensively, they kept giving the ball away, but they looked dangerous. Like they looked like they were going to win that game for 80 minutes, but just couldn't break their way through. Man United never looked like they were going to beat Newcastle. It always just looked like it was going to be 0-0 till Newcastle scored a stunning goal. And I will just say about Newcastle, like they did play well. I think this Alan Saint-Maxim is looking okay. The Longstaff brothers, it was Matthew Longstaff who scored with a really cracking finish. Terrible defending, like no one saw him come running up. Miguel Almiron is a player who needs a goal, and I think he'll kick on a bit, but he's looking very short on confidence. He had a chance which he should have done better with, but it was just a real low confidence effort, I feel. I like Newcastle a lot. Like, there just seems to be a lot of plucky characters in there, and I hope Steve Bruce gets a chance, because I think he's a good manager, and he just gets, because of the fact he's Steve Bruce, he doesn't really get a fair shout sometimes, but he's always generally been a success where he's been, in that he's never really had a disaster in any club that he's been to. And I feel for him, because it's a tough act to follow, and it's not his fault what happened with Benitez or anything like that. Like, he's managing the club, of his boyhood dreams at the end of the day. He's a Geordie boy, and he's supporting Newcastle. But it's not his fault, a lot of the stuff that goes on. So I hope he stays up. We'll see. There's a lot of football still to be played. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's been a long one. But till next time, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.